going to be pretty casual and a little what's the word I'm looking for? A little scatterbrained. I just got off a plane very late last night from my hometown here, and then coming back here to Austin. So we're going to have a lot of fun today and see how this goes. We're going to be discussing grounding with Gemini on Vertex AI. And actually, just a little behind the scenes stuff here. First, let me give a little intro to myself. So who am I? My name is Holt Skinner. I'm a developer advocate for cloud AI based in Austin, Texas. What I do is I write code for people to use, specifically other engineers at other companies, mostly teaching them how to use Google Cloud. I help software engineers. I create a lot of technical educational content. And this includes things like blog posts, YouTube videos, notebooks, a lot of sample code, documentation, all that kind of stuff. I work to make products developer friendly, and I build online communities like this one. And so one of the things that I end up doing is I make a lot of YouTube videos, YouTube series. If you may have seen some of my stuff on YouTube, or other things from other developer advocates on Google Cloud, if you're familiar with that. And so this particular talk is actually a kind of sneak preview of a video that's going to be recorded probably sometime this month. So in addition to getting your questions and all this, I would love to have your feedback on the content. Please don't judge my presentation style today because, again, I've had a little too much coffee to kind of get going. So I'm going to be talking pretty fast and all over the place. It's going to be fun, though. We're going to have a great time. But, any feedback on the actual content or, the way the material is presented, I'd love to hear it. So this is going to be kind of a more 101 type session. So I'm assuming a little bit of knowledge with Google Cloud, maybe a little bit of knowledge on Vertex AI, a little bit about Gemini, the Google Gemini model, but not too much about RAG and grounding. And so, but again, if you are more advanced than that, don't click away. I would love to hear your feedback and any additional stuff that you have for suggestions. So let's kind of get started on the actual contents here. Let me go back a little bit and close my presentation for a second. Okay, so today we're going to explore how to use grounding with Gemini models for Vertex AI on Google Cloud. And for just a little context overview, generative AI models like LLMs are pretty great at creating text. But when you ask specific questions, they may have a tendency to hallucinate or just make stuff up that may or may not be accurate. And so by default, most models will do their best to give you some kind of plausible sounding answer based on the data that it's been given in its training. So let's take a look at an example of this. Yeah, I know I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I'm going to do a little switcheroo here. So for example here, I'm here in Vertex AI Studio, and we're going to ask a question that has some factual information, or that requires some factual information. So I'm actually going to use the very latest version of Gemini 1.5 Flash. This one was just released in general availability a couple of days ago, I think. This is Gemini 1.5 Flash 1002. And this one's great for a lot of stuff, but if you try to ask it for some factual information, it may or may not always be accurate. So let's say, when is the next solar eclipse in the United States? We just had one a few months ago. It was awesome. Hopefully you got to see it. But let's see what this will actually give us. So if I ask it, it says the next solar eclipse visible in the United States will be an annular solar eclipse on October 14th, 2023. It's currently October 2024, and this happened almost a full year ago at this point. So even though this is a very up-to-date model, like this is the latest model, it still is giving inaccurate information. Now you can adjust this slightly by saying, adjusting the prompt a little bit or adjusting the temperature. So temperature of 0 make the model output deterministic. It should give the same basic information it should give the same basic answer every time. So we can adjust this prompt slightly to say, like, maybe the next solar eclipse in the United States after 2024, because we just had one this year. Let's see what it actually says. So here we go. It says the next solar eclipse is in the United States after the April 8th, 2024. So total solar eclipse will be, this is still wrong completely, October 14th, 2023. If you know how dates work, 2023 is before 2024. So that is not accurate at all. I think this is actually correct right here. A total solar eclipse would not occur again in the US until August 22nd, 2044. I believe that actually is right, but not entirely sure. And so this kind of works. Obviously, this information is not entirely accurate. This might be, but it doesn't give you any kind of information about like where this information come from. We could do a Google search about this. So like, let's actually just do a little Google search. Next total solar eclipse in USA. Yeah, August 23rd, 2044. I think that's what it said right here. August 22nd is what this one said. So still not entirely right. So we can look that up and verify it ourselves, but it would be much easier if the model actually just gave us the correct information. And so how we're going to do that is with a technique known as, as RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. And this is not the same as a kitchen rag or something like that. But so what this actually means is that for retrieval, you retrieve data from some resource like a database, a document, or a vector store, and then you provide that data as context to the LLM prompt to augment the generated output, retrieval augmented generation. And so you can actually do this yourself in a lot of different ways. So if you want to do this kind of the DIY approach, so there's a lot of stuff you have to actually do to get this started. So you have to collect the data somehow. You can do a web crawler. You can input direct files. You can have databases, other connectors from third-party sources like APIs or APIs for these different services you have data in. Then somehow you have to parse all that information to get it into some kind of like textual format. So if it's a PDF, you need to send it into something like Google Cloud Document AI or another service to do optical character recognition. You have to chunk all that data up a lot of times, depending on how big the context window of the model is. You have to do some embeddings, which allows you to actually turn all of that text into a vector of numbers. And then you can actually search through it that way by doing semantic matching or algorithms like the scalable approximate nearest neighbors, or SCAN. Then you have to store it somehow. You can use different types of databases, vector databases. They may not all perform the same way. And then at runtime, you actually have to take in the user query. You might have to spell check it. You might need to reword it in some way. For the actual search, you can use something like Vertex AI vector search or matching, which used to be called matching engine. There's all sorts of different ways you can do that. Then you'll have to use some kind of large language model to actually do the summarization and the conversation, which requires some prompt engineering, maybe some tuning and getting citations. Then you'll have to handle serving, which handles things like scalability and the actual like web application that you're going to host all of this stuff on. So it's entirely possible and feasible to do that yourself. But it can be complicated to settle this sort of stuff up. Now, there are, of course, popular frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index that do kind of a lot of the work for you. They're convenient tools to fit the parts together and kind of swap them out as needed. But sometimes it just makes sense to use a managed service. And so this is how Google Cloud can help. We have a feature, Vertex AI has a feature called grounding, which performs the RAG work behind the scenes. This is not the same as coffee grounds or when you were a kid, your parents took away your video games because you drew on the wall. That was a very real story for me. It's more like building a solid foundation for the model to base its answers on. So let's see how this works. Currently, there are two supported services for this. We have in Gemini, we have Google Search and Vertex AI Search. Google Search is pretty straightforward. When a question comes in, a Google search query is made, and then the search results are just given to Gemini to help it decide on an answer. This effectively gives Gemini access to knowledge from the entire public internet. So let's actually look at this in the console. So in Vertex AI Studio, a little playground where you can kind of just mess around with these language models. You just need to flip the switch to enable grounding and then select Google Search as the source. Okay, so let's see how that works here. Okay, so we can go in here to grounding and just turn our source to Google Search. Okay, and we can actually take our prompt and our temperature back to what they were at the beginning, which was 1, and then we can get rid of this after 2024. And hopefully this will be actually accurate. Haha, here we go. The next total solar eclipse visible in the contiguous United States will be on August 23rd, 2024. And it gives us all the citations to actually go and verify this if we want. So we can actually click on this and it should take us to, here we go. List of solar eclipses visible from the United States. This is Wikipedia. So we can go in here and see wherever it is in here, 2044. I don't know, this one might be, oh, this is specifically for states. Let's look at maybe the NASA one instead, probably a little easier to read. So this one talks about the previous solar eclipse, and then it should have some information about the next one in here. Or maybe it does. I'm not sure. We'll check one of these other ones here. And so it says that this next eclipse will be visible only over Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And then we'll actually have one in Alaska in 2033. And it says that there'll be another one that crosses the entire contiguous United States in 2045. Pretty cool then. So I could go in and actually search for all of these here, but that'll take a little bit of time to actually look it up here. So it's pretty easy to kind of get a ground-up response here. And we can also ask about other types of things that require factual information or stuff that would be on the public internet. So let's take a look at another way of doing this. So for example, if you want to have this work on your own data, not just data that's on the public internet, you can use something called Vertex AI Search, which is a managed search product that allows you to create search engines over your own data that's in cloud storage, in BigQuery, on your own websites, or other types of structured data, unstructured data. You can also use connectors like for Confluence and Jira and Google Drive as well. So let's take a look at how this thing would actually be created. So the way that you actually look for this is that you go in the Cloud Console, look for Vertex AI Agent Builder, which I'm already on it. So this product has had quite a few different names over the years, but it's nowadays we're calling it Agent Builder in the console, but I also refer to it as Vertex AI Search. And so what you actually need to do in here is you go in and create a data store and an app for this data that you want. And so I'm going to be using some fictional kind of internal documents for a fake bank called Symbol Bank. Okay, and so I happen to have all of these stored in this particular Google Cloud Storage bucket. So I can go in here, I can create myself an app, which is what we're going to use to actually put in our searching. So search, we have get quality results out of the box and easily customize the engine. We're going to create a generic engine. There's different ones for different media or different industry verticals as well. We're going to leave all these options checked. We're just going to create here some AI Camp, Symbol Bank, and then external name of your company or organization. This helps it give better responses. So we're going to say Symbol Bank. Location, we're going to put this in the global region. And then I'm going to hide that, continue. And now we're going to create a data store. This is where our data is actually going to be stored at, as the name suggests. And we're going to just use cloud storage for now, but there's lots of other connectors for different places of data. Storage. Okay, so you can do a one-time ingestion or you can do periodic where it'll actually update it over time. I'm just going to do one time for now because all the data is currently static. We're going to say this is unstructured documents. This is like our PDF files, raw HTML, text files. You can do this for other types of data if you want to include more metadata and things like that. And we're going to paste this link in here. gs:// cloud samples data, GenAI builder, search symbol bank employee. Okay, and we're going to create a name for this. We're going to call this thing AI Camp Symbol Data Store. And if you need access, if you have specific access controls, then you can set that up as well. We're going to leave it as is, leave all of this as is, and create. And we're going to use this data store to create our little app. Come back. Create. Okay, and then this will take a little bit of time to ingest all that data, but through the magic of creating this ahead of time, we actually have one that's already ready to go. So we have this symbol bank documents. It currently only has 6 documents in it, but it's actually pretty cool because you can go in here and create these different kinds of search engines. I can go in here and like ask a specific question, or I could search for specific stuff like, how do I book business travel? And it should answer based on the context of the data that's in here. Yep, here we go. To book business travel, you can use Symbol Bank's travel booking tools, Symbol Fly, Symbol Stay, Symbol Drive, all that kind of stuff. And you can actually see the citation for that as well, which happens to be this document right here. And then if I open this up, there we go. These are just some sample documents I created myself, but you can actually go in here and see the specific names of these. So here we go, Symbol Stay, we have Symbol Drive. So it uses the actual names of the tools that I'm supposed to, and it directed me to the correct document with all this information. Then I could also ask follow-up questions or something along those lines if I want to. And so if you want to you can actually deploy these widgets by yourself, but if you want to connect these up to just the regular Gemini API, you can use grounding to do that. And so let's look at how we're going to do that. So if we go back to Vertex AI Studio, we'll actually go in here to grounding and customize, and then we can click on Vertex AI Search. Then what we can do here, it actually gives you the instructions on how to set everything up if you want, but I've already done that. And then we want to include this full Vertex AI Search data store path. And so the format of this is going to be projects, and then my project ID, and then locations. That one happens to be global. Collections, default collection. And then data stores. And then we're going to put the data store name in, which happens to be this right here. Oops. Okay, there we go. And then hopefully I should be able to ask it some information here and see kind of what we want here. So maybe I could ask like what roles, what careers are available maybe. Hopefully I did everything right. Haha, there we go. So if you look at this right here, it says, based on the provided text, Symbol Bank offers the following roles: data scientist, developer, DevOps engineer, blah, 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 blah. It has a lot of them on here, and it gave a citation to this specific document that's in here. So let's see what it actually opens up. I don't know. Okay, so I can actually go in here and see the full link here. It gave me a link to the cloud storage bucket, which that's not actually as useful as I would like, because you can't just like click on one of these GS links. You have to edit it slightly to be able to view it just in a browser, but that might be a bug I need to file to the product team for this. But anyways, the actual response text, if you got this through, say, the API, would be this, which is a little more useful because you can actually access the files easier that way. And so speaking of the API, if you want to actually do all of this in some kind of application, all you have to do is click up here to get code, and it tells you exactly how to set everything up. It gives you the specific installation commands you need to do, and then it actually gives you the full code that you would need. So you can just copy paste this and run it directly. And so if you can actually see in here, this is where the grounding is configured in here. Where are we? Here we go. So tools, we create a tool from retrieval. We put in all of our information here. We have our grounding with Vertex AI Search, and then we have that data store path in here. Now, I went through that pretty quickly, but let's actually go through a couple, let's see how we can actually do this for a little more realistic example here. So we're actually going to do a search for generative AI, Google Cloud, GitHub, just because I don't have the link handy right here. So this is a repository that my team and I maintain that shows all sorts of examples on how to use generative AI with Google Cloud, right? And if you go into this RAG grounding folder, we actually have a README in here that shows all of the content that we need, or all of the content that we currently have about how to use grounding and RAG with Google Cloud. So for example here, we should have like an intro to grounding with Gemini. This is going to be kind of your main, this gives a kind of overview of what I just showed you today. Proud to go through this. It's a full Jupyter notebook that kind of gives an overview of what the product is, what the feature is, and just kind of goes through the steps of how to do it and shows
Hi,
code.
Holt. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Like for me, screen is blurred.
Oh, it
I
is.
believe there are some people where like
Ah,
they're also facing the same issue. So if
okay.
you can check.
Well, hopefully that hasn't been going on for too long. So let me
Actually, it gets better with
Okay.
little time. If you give
It's
okay.
some
like,
time,
I
it
think
gets better. Yeah.
I think I was moving around a little too much probably. Main thing is you
uh,
don't have to actually see this at this point because I'll send you the link so you can go explore it yourself.
okay.
Okay, excellent. So let me make sure that I've got through everything I wanted to go through here. But yeah, so this repository is great. It has it's hundreds of different examples. As you can see, it is actively being maintained. I actually just made a pull request to this about 39 minutes ago, right before this session, because there were some formatting issues on it. So I'm going to actually share that link in the chat here. It is just Google Cloud Platform Generative AI. So it is a great resource to kind of get started in there. And that specific notebook that I just showed you was Intro to Grounding with Gemini. Here we go. Now, I know today has been a little bit scatterbrained, but I would love to answer your questions at this point because I know that there's stuff that was missed or anything along those lines. Let's see what we have here. I'm looking at the chat to find what questions were added in here. Oh my gosh, we're up to 100 participants. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for sticking around. So here we go. Let me find what we have. I'm not used to using Zoom, so the chat keeps like jumping and I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay. I think the first question on here was from Jack Pines. I'm a big data engineer and have previously left the AI to the data scientists. Let me stop sharing as well, because we don't need that. Oh my gosh, it keeps jumping around. Now I'm starting to dig into AI. It has become more accessible. I was under the impression that RAG was different from agents. Am I misunderstanding? Okay, so there's the word agent has been thrown around a bunch of different ways. Let me actually show you the definition of agent that I like, because I think it's a pretty good way of describing it. So this is actually the Wikipedia answer for this. Let me go over here. Oh, nope, wrong page. Here we go. So in computer science, a software agent is a computer program that acts for a user or another program in a relationship of agency. So what does that mean? It basically means an agent is just some kind of computer program that does something on behalf of a user, right? So RAG is one way of doing that. One of the things that an agent can do is retrieve a bunch of information from somewhere and then give that back to a user. And that retrieval step of, or actually making a query to a database or something like that, is the action that it does on behalf of a user. But agents are also can do a whole lot more than that. This is the kind of thing where you could say, like, I don't know, oh, make a calendar invite for such and such event at such and such time. And there's different ways that you can do this with Google Cloud. So there is Agent Builder, which is this, the name of this particular service here. But so if you actually go in here and try and create other things, you can create these different types of apps. One of them is agents. That is a lot more kind of that autonomous thing where you can answer questions from data, connect to business systems through different tools and other things like that. Typically, you see the word agent used for more things like chatbots. That's what a lot of them end up being. So that's one of kind of the differences of that. So RAG is just one type of thing that can be done with an agent, but it can be done without an agent. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense here, but there's a lot of information that's out there, so it's kind of confusing when everyone talks about it. Okie doke, where is the Zoom meeting? Okay. RAG is different from agents, right? Yes. Screen clearly visible. Sorry about the blurriness. Is agent like your own LLM? Already kind of answered that. How confident are we that the ground data is true? So it kind of it depends. That's the answer for almost everything here. So in the actual API response for grounding with Gemini and Vertex AI, there is actually like there's a score in there that actually gives like the confidence of it. You can't see it in the console, but I believe there is actually like a score in there that describes that. In there, there's also different metrics that can be used to kind of determine that. We actually have a different service that's called the Check Grounding API. Let me see if I can open that up. It actually uses the Vertex AI Search API endpoint. Check Grounding Vertex AI Search. Here we go. This is one that actually gives you like an overall support score. So you give it the actual sources and citations from it, and then the answer that's given from whatever LM. And this doesn't even have to be done with Gemini. This can be done with other types of LLMs. And it gives you kind of a support score of it. I don't think it specifically calls it a confidence, but it's actually like a supported score about how grounded it is. And let me put that link in the chat here. We add it to the entire meeting group chat. That's what that is. Okay, let me see if I can find what I'm looking for here. Much better now. Sorry, I'm trying to find all the messages here. There's a lot that are in here. Oh my goodness.
Hi, Holt. I've actually pinged the questions to you. It's Aziza.
Hi, Aziza.
Hello. So if you check your ping, I put some of the questions in there for you.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, yes, I can't go through all of this this chat here. Thank you so much, Aziza. Okay, so from JL, how do you calculate the cost of the solution? Is there a fixed cost or does it depend on the storage, the use? Okay, there is actually a pricing page. In my role, I try to kind of pretend that pricing doesn't exist, but that's not how everyone else thinks. Honestly, I would love for all this stuff to be free and open to use, but that's not my decision to make. So Vertex, if you search for Vertex AI Search pricing, or maybe Vertex AI Agent Builder pricing, yeah, here we go. This actually gives you the cost for like storage and all of that kind of stuff on here. Let me make sure it's in here. Yep, Search Standard Edition, Search Enterprise Edition. This talks about the queries. Where's the actual storage stuff? Data indexed. Yeah, so this is the data index is what you'd have to pay on for that. Okay, thank you so much, Aziza. This is very helpful. Okay, from Jennifer Pollock. Yes, I'm assuming no relation to Jackson Pollock. Can you show an example prompt where the answer might not be possible to determine just how Gemini responds with grounding? That's a good question there. Let's actually try something out here. So let's ask something that's not relevant to the data that's in this Vertex AI Search data store I created. Let me think about what all is in there. So there's stuff about like product strategy. There's stuff about jobs and careers available, the company history. What if we just ask something completely random, like what is your cat's name? By the way, if anyone lives in Southern Missouri and would like some kittens, my mother has like 9 at her house right now. So completely random, but they're on my mind. I do not have a cat, nor do I have a name. Okay, very interesting. So let's try something that's more of like a factual information that it wouldn't actually know. So actually, this is a fascinating thing here. So what was, what's the name of this here? Old Rip. If you've ever heard about this, this was actually the name of a, nope, that's completely inaccurate there. So Old Rip was actually the name of a toad or a lizard toad of some kind that lived in Texas for a long time. It was sealed away in like a church, sealed away in like a church pillar of concrete or something, and then it came out 20, 30 years later and was still alive somehow. So it looks like it did actually try to make something up here, which is not great. But I guess it will still make a few things up here, but it's fascinating here. It might just depend on the data sources. There might actually be something in there in those data that makes it look like that. Okay, let's go back to the questions here. Oh dear. Okay, how do you ensure that Vertex is selecting the correct data from the Google search, especially when it finds conflicting information? That is a whole area of study about which data is correct, especially when it finds conflicting information. So we also have to be very careful here when we're talking about Vertex versus Gemini and all that kind of stuff. So what it will end up doing is it will do a semantic matching of all of the information that's in whatever prompt you give it, and the semantic matching of the data that's in the prompt and the data from the actual Google search. Typically, it'll just pick the top few results from the actual Google search, and then provide that as context to Gemini. It'll give like the full information from those pages that it finds. So then Gemini is kind of able to make inferences based upon that information that's given in. It basically just injects all of the data from the page and the sources and citations into the prompt. So Gemini can figure it out itself. So it's a whole area of study around it, but that's kind of the basics of how that works. Okay, another question from Jim S. Hey Holt, you happen to have a CS degree? I guess you looked at my LinkedIn or something. So how important do you feel having a CS degree, BS, MS, PhD can do for devs wanting to switch to a career in ML AI? That's a very good question, and I'd say it very much depends on what exactly you want to do in ML AI and where you want to work. Some places care a whole lot more about having a degree than others. Nowadays, it has got, well, by nowadays, I mean within the last like 5-10 years or so, it seems like it's gotten significantly easier to learn a lot of this types of content on your own, right? So what I would say is that having a degree makes it more likely that your resume is going to get looked at by a recruiter, but that really doesn't make as much of a difference when you're actually, applying this in your job or trying to go through like a technical interview. So I definitely know there are a lot of people that work in AI and even at Google that don't have CS degrees that work full time on this. There was actually one guy who was a math professor actually at my university before he started working at Google. And so he had a degree. He had a degree in math, and maybe his PhD I think was in physics or something like that. So there's a lot of that type of thinking and reasoning that can kind of pass over to this. So it's good to have some kind of degree in that, because you do kind of learn how to think and how to reason, but I don't think it's necessarily required. Granted, it is useful to have some kind of like third-party certification or something like that on your resume, just to say like, okay, look, I actually do know what I'm talking about, or have some kind of have a lot of personal projects on GitHub or something like that that you can actually show to prove, yes, I've been able to do this. And I've built real applications with this, and have good stories to tell. That's always really good. Good stories about what kind of work you've done and the projects you've been able to work on. Yeah, so from Vasile, can we use Firebase DB as a data store in case I want to chat with real-time data updated there? Yes. So you can use, you say Firebase DB. There's a few different types of Firebase databases. I think you're talking about Firestore. So let me go ahead and go to Vertex AI Search Firestore on Google. Oh, this is kind of cool here. There's some different extensions you can do here. This is actually a site I've never seen before, but I like it. There's a whole extension for Firebase that uses semantic searching with
By
Firestore.
fire, we mean FHIR, not this fire.
Oh, okay. Yes, you can. Thank you very much for that clarification there. So Vertex AI Search FIH, yes. So healthcare data. There's actually a whole thing for healthcare data that you can set up in here. And yes, I believe it is Fire data. It's Fire R4 data. So you have to import it using the Google Cloud Healthcare API, and then you can import it into Vertex AI Search. So this is the whole document that shows how to do that. Let me add it to the chat if I can. Meeting group chat. There you go. Search healthcare data. Now, I've not actually ever done this because I don't have any healthcare data to work on with this, but this is a very popular service. It's been used by a lot of different customers, so it does work. It is feasible. Okay, let me go back to the chat. Okay, how confident are we that the ground data is true? I already did that. Is agent like your own LLM? Jack Bragg is different. Okay. So from Kalesh, how do you train on data model? Could you be a little more specific on your question there? Like what kinds of things do you mean by how do you train on data model? Let's see, is Kalesh even here? I'm looking in the list of things here. Okay, I see a lot more. Ugh, my goodness. I'm really trying to go through these chats, and does anyone who uses Zoom more often know a better way to search through chats like this or do Q&A and things? This is really...
use a Q&A button, which we don't have present in this version, this setup, I think.
Oh, we don't? Okay. That would be, yeah. So AI camp people, add a Q&A function. I don't know if that's possible to just add on to anything, but that would be very helpful. Okay. Oh, I see some direct messages here. Oh my goodness. Sorry, the chat keeps like skipping, so I can't see what's happening in here.
No worries. I'll still continue to add them in the ping.
Okay. Thank you so much. There's a few direct messages here. So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting to learn about generative AI? Gosh, I would say that it's a very difficult question to answer just because things seem to be changing so fast. But I guess I'll give the advice that I give for anything related to tech, basically. Focus on the fundamentals first. The things that kind of don't change throughout different versions of models. So for example, if you want to, go kind of really deep into this, honestly, learn a little bit about how the transformer neural network architecture works. Because it kind of gives you an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. It's sort of kind of related to that question earlier about like a CS degree. You're learning the fundamentals. You're learning you're getting a baseline of the kinds of stuff you would need in order to kind of get started with this. And also I'd see if you can find like just some basic tutorials about how to use these different types of models and try out different types of models at this point. So like, go ahead and mess with OpenAI, mess with the GPT models, try out Gemini, Llama, and there's a few different places that you can actually do with this. So, obviously I'm a little biased towards Google Cloud just because it's, they pay my bills. But look at this, look at the GitHub repository here. We actually do have, let me see, I think I'm still presenting at this point. So
yes, you are.
I am. Great. Thank you very much. So we actually have a whole getting started directory here that shows kind of how to get started with the different Gemini models available. What I probably recommend is this one. This is like a good intro guide, but it kind of gives you some examples of the different types of prompts that you can use. And has all of the code right there, so you can kind of get started with it.
You'll be sharing this, right?
Yeah, I'm going to share the link.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. So yep, it's in that repository that I sent earlier today, so it's all in there. Okie doke. Can you explain how Vertex AI integrates AutoML and custom training workflows? Okay, it's a very different kind of thing than what we're talking about today. But so AutoML was like I think that's still the name that was being used for this. But there's I've not used it in so long. I'm trying to refresh my memory on this. So AutoML is part of a Vertex AI that allows you to just kind of upload your data and in kind of a no-code, low-code type of way, just create custom models with that. So let me actually see if I can find this here. AutoML Vertex AI. And there's a few different types of models that you can create. Oh, here we go. It looks like starting on September 15th, 2024, you can only customize classification, entity extraction, and sentiment analysis objectives by moving to Gemini prompts and tuning. Okay, so there's been a few changes being made. You can continue to use existing models until June 15th, 2025. So it looks like a lot of this is kind of being, moved over to using Gemini specifically. But you should be able to actually train different models here. Like there's custom image classification models and tabular data. I think tabular data is probably the one that's most relevant to a lot of this. It's still doing kind of your classic predictive AI stuff, like trying to think of this here, like linear regression and those kinds of things. So I'll go ahead and send this beginner guide here because it has most of the data most of the information you'll probably need for that. Attention is all you need. I just saw that in here, and yes, that is a great thing to look at. And there's actually speaking about the transformer architecture, there's actually a good video from one of my former teammates, Dale Markowitz. So let's try this here. So transformers explained, Dale Markowitz. And I'll share this. There we go. This was made actually before the generative AI rush of the last couple of years, but it's a great video there. Okay, let's see if Aziza has more things on here. How do you train on data model? I am using BigQuery. Oh, this is from Kailash here. So how do you train on data model? I'm using BigQuery. I'm still not entirely sure what you're referring to here, but there are a few different things you can do with models from, you can access Gemini models in BigQuery, or you can bring in data from BigQuery for things like fine tuning and all of that. Let me actually give you a couple of pages here that could be helpful. So in this repository, we actually have some stuff using BigQuery with all of these models. So if you just do a search for BigQuery, oops, here we go, applying LLMs to data. This one is this one's using one of the older models, but it's the same basic idea. And a lot of this will still work with Gemini as well. Whoops, let me open up Zoom. Okay, so I sent some of that data in there, but you can also just search in this repository for BigQuery, and you can actually find a lot of examples for that as well. Here we go, like your semantic search in BigQuery, LangChain BigQuery data loader, RAG with BigQuery, all that kind of stuff. And using Gemini with BigQuery remote functions, that's actually a newer one. It's in here. Okay, let's see what more chats we got. You said you were the collaborator of that repository, generative AI. How did you approach to create good and reliable API? I'm not entirely sure. So Jacob, or Jakob, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that. So I'm not entirely sure what you're asking about. How did you approach to create good and reliable API? So I didn't create the actual API for Gemini. I do work on the Vertex AI SDK as well. So I do, which is the actual Python SDK that you use to do to make calls to the Gemini model through Vertex AI. But we have a whole team that actually manages that. That we have a whole We have an API guideline specification out there. This is actually completely public. So Google API specification. I don't remember what it's called. API design guide. Maybe this is it for networked APIs. This actually, yeah, this describes exactly how all of the Google Cloud APIs are designed. And we have a full document that talks about the actual API readability is what we call it as well. So I don't remember where it actually is at this point, but this one is possibly a page that would be good for that. It probably links into the official guide that I'm thinking about, but I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Yes, thanks for your patience on all of this. I'm sorry that my answers are a little scattered at this point. Okay. Can I connect the agent directly to my application, or do I need to use Vertex AI to get the integration code? What will be the difference? Okay. This is from JL. Would you be able to, can you unmute and explain kind of what you're asking about with that? I'm not sure I understand. Do I need to use Vertex AI to get the integration code? What will be the difference?
Oh, hello. Yeah, that's my question. So when you use Agent Builder to create your agent, you could ask a question in the preview section, and there is another option called integrations. But then you use Vertex AI to connect to the agent. So can I just integrate it from here to my Python application?
Yes, there is also an API for Vertex AI Search that you can use to to make requests directly to the search engine, so you can get the search results and all of that, or those generated responses here. So actually, in the console, there's a widget you can create, which makes this little preview thing right here. And then there's also the API. This shows the REST API here, but there also are code samples for Python and Node and Java and all of that, which I happen to write a few of these here. But so here we go. For example, get search results for an app with website data or structured, unstructured data. This shows how those search results are, how you can get those search results directly in there without having to go through Vertex AI. Or I guess this is still through Vertex AI, but it's its own API.
And will be there any benefit if I use Vertex AI, like the responses are going to be more consistent, more reduced, or something like that?
So I would say the main difference between these is just kind of if you already have an application that's using Vertex AI, using specifically other things with just the raw Gemini API, it's probably better just to connect it into there because it's easier. However, the Vertex AI Search API, because it actually uses like a whole different endpoint and everything, if it kind of depends on like which product you're kind of, I'm trying to think of how to describe this here. It depends. It's more on which product you're kind of investing more in. Because this Vertex AI Search, well, Vertex AI Agent Builder, Vertex AI Search, same basic thing. It has significantly more on the search and the search engine side of things than just what is offered in the Vertex AI Gemini API. I did not explain that well at all, but it's basically just there's a lot more things that you can do with Vertex AI Search than just the grounding side of things. So it depends on if you want to use those other features or not, on which API you would use. Hopefully that may or may not be a good answer there, but I'll send you this documentation so you can actually go in and see how to do that.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness. We have a lot of pings coming in. And we've already lost 20 people. Oh no. Well, thank you all for sticking around here. So let me scroll down in here. Let's see what all the things get sent in by Aziza here. Okay. How many amendments do you need to make in prompts when changing to different models? And are there any basics you have found working with all models? Oh man. So once again, the answer is it depends. It depends. A lot of, I'm trying to think here. My kind of philosophy on this is that if you have to make a ton of amendments to your prompts when switching versions, your prompt is probably kind of overfit for that particular model. In a lot of ways, it also kind of depends on how advanced your use case is. So that's actually, honestly, I don't have a very good answer for a lot of that. That's something that I'm going to actually take a note on that, because that's something that we should make some more content about. Because, Gemini updates its model every, let's see, nowadays we had Gemini 1.5 Pro, in Flash, we had 1.0. So we've updated it, I think, 2 or 3 times since Gemini, the first version of Gemini was released. But we haven't really done updates on like how to prompt it differently, if there's anything like that. Yeah, I mean, I have content about the actual kind of fundamentals of prompt design, if you'd like to look at that. But it's a little bit different because it's not specifically tailored to one model or the other. So that's a very good question, and that's something I'm going to need to think about more as we go along. Sorry, I don't have a good answer for you, but it's something definitely to think about. Okay, intro to prompt design. And actually, we have something else in here. There's a newer API that was just added called the Vertex AI Prompt Optimizer, which helps you kind of optimize your prompts for either, I guess, specific models or for specific use cases. So that's something else you can try out in here. Let me send you first to the Intro to Prompt Design notebook, and then here's the Prompt Optimizer stuff. There you go. I see a post here. Walter here from Austin, Texas. Nice. Thank you for joining here. Damn good info. Okay, that's cool. I like it. I'm glad that you think that it's glad you think my info is damn good. So we do have damn good tacos across the street at Torchy's, if you know that place. Okay.
Hey, Holt. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I've been playing around with Gemini 1.5 Pro. The work I'm doing is converting the pseudocode to SQL. And I noticed that sometimes I would give it like exactly the same prompt with exactly the same context and everything. And like out of the 5 attempts would give me perfect result with everything explained and all the scenarios covered. And like 3 or 4 others would give me complete bullshit. And I've set the temperature to 0, and it didn't change much. So maybe, you know, any things I could try out to make to get more consistent results.
Yeah. So could you give me a little bit of the context again? So you said you're using like just the Gemini model, and are
Yeah.
you using grounding with Vertex AI Search or
No,
search or something?
just the model by itself was like all the context in the single prompt.
And all the context given in the prompt.
Yeah.
That is interesting because what was the data that you're putting in and all of that?
The pseudocode, the class model,
Okay.
and a few examples of the generated queries.
That's interesting. So, and which model are you using? Is it 1.5 Flash or Pro, or both
Pro.
of them? Okay. Yeah, because let's see. I've not come across that in my own testing. I'm actually currently doing a lot of experiments on auto generation of code snippets for our own products and everything using Gemini 1.5, and it's been surprisingly consistent overall. It might just depend on your specific data. And something that's interesting too that I just noticed, like today, I guess a new feature that was released. We now allow specifying a seed value, which should give a much more. It's intended for like repeated model requests and getting the same response from it. Granted, kind of adding that in there is going to be just it's going to be kind of a shot in the dark. You kind of have to just put something and see kind of what it does, but it allows you to kind of get that consistency in there. Trying to think about, I know it's not a very good answer for this. So something that you can do that I've seen people do this is that you can make multiple requests to the same model and then do some kind of evaluation, like some automated evaluation to determine the best answer out of all of those. That's kind of the best way to get around this sort of inherent randomness that there is in models. You can actually do, like, for example, 5 requests to the model or 5 requests to Gemini in a row. Take all those different answers, and then you could actually send maybe a last request to Gemini and say, pick the best one out of these. But there are kind of more systematic ways of handling that. Let me actually find the information I have on that, because I believe we actually have a notebook that shows how to do all those kinds of evaluations and the multi-prompt setup. Okay. So I know there's something in this repository from it. I believe it's in Gemini evaluation, I think. We actually have a lot of information here on evaluation. This is made by the product team for the Vertex AI Evaluation SDK. This is I'm sorry that I don't know the exact one that's in here, but it would be a place to start here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, there we go.
I have a related question that may shed some light on that.
Go for it.
What I've noticed is a lot of LLMs that are online have the capability to run online searches, but they are very reluctant to do so. I can sort of force them to do it. And whether they do a search or not is usually the difference between whether I get a hallucinatory response or not. And, you know, especially if I'm talking about something that has happened since their training data. And so that my question was, why does this happen in general? Why are these LLMs so reluctant to run online searches, which would ground the response and make the response correct and eliminate the hallucinations? Why are they so reluctant to do that? Is it a cost issue?
So, well, I can't speak to how it works for other models. So I do know that whenever you use grounding for like Google search or Vertex AI search, it will always make a query. There is actually a feature coming up to where you can, or I think hopefully this is where you can this is set up in the in one of the APIs where you can actually set a threshold for when it should make a query or not. But I would say largely it's probably a cost issue, or there honestly could be some it's probably a cost and latency issue, because that request to some kind of search or whatever does take time, and it does have some kind of cost to it. So, and probably the idea is that the majority of requests wouldn't actually need it. And so that's why they're kind of reluctant to do it. I'm going to say it's mostly a cost thing because like these models take a lot of compute power to run, or at least some of them do.
Something that's interesting about that is that I know a lot of people, including other developers, who refuse to rely on LLMs because of the hallucinations.
Right.
And so this is sort of a inflection point for public opinion on AI. And if they don't do the searches, then people are going to say, I don't believe in this AI stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very reasonable thought about this. Because I mean, from the beginning of all of the generative AI LLM craze, I've been cautiously optimistic, but also a healthy dose of skepticism on the accuracy and the accuracy and I guess citability of all of the information in this. So, I mean, the main kind of way to go around that is just you can honestly build your own RAG or use some kind of different way that you can actually deterministically say that, okay, there's always going to be a request made to some kind of search data. And also, I just realized we are out of time here. And I am about to get kicked out of this meeting room. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to all the questions here. I'm going to see if I can maybe export this chat out so I can post maybe in the Slack so I can answer some things because I know there's a lot in here. And thank you all for, I saw someone gave some feedback in here. Thank you all for your participation and all your good questions. I'll see if I can give better questions or better answers to questions in the chat later. Once I've had maybe another cup of coffee and look at some research as well on this.
Yes, thank you so much, Holt. This is Aziza. I have put all the questions in the actual ping for you. So if you want to answer those and put those into the separate chat, like you stated, it'll be amazing. And thank everyone for attending. If you all can just scan this QR code and provide like a short survey or feedback for today's talk, we totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have an amazing day.
Thanks, Mr. Holt.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hall, for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us today. And thanks to all of you for joining us today and being such an engaging audience. So before we leave, we would love to hear your feedback. So please take a moment to fill up this short survey and share your thoughts. Your feedback will help us to improve our future events. And thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. I have shared all the important links in a group chat and also the important resources which we have got from today's session.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
Same here.
Good night.
Good night.